Today's video is all about efficiency and effectiveness. You have to be as effective as possible while being as efficient as possible. So these 4 warm-up drills that I'm going to show you today, these 4 baseball stretching drills, are going to allow you to get the biggest bang for your buck and maximize performance while reducing the amount of time that you have to spend in your warm-up. So one of the most effective drills, and it's actually in some of our other videos that we use for stretching with our athletes, is a hamstring hip flexion stretch where you're actually activating into the range. So you're using antagonist and agonist contraction. So I'm going to contract my hamstrings and my quadriceps. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend down. We call it the reverse hamstring. I'm going to get my fingers under my toes. I can do it different ways with more hip internal or external rotation, tibial internal or external rotation. I'm going to push my butt to the sky, holding my knuckles all the way under my toes, stretching, stretching. I want to hold it for a decent amount of time. In a warm-up, I would say around 30 seconds. And I can actually, just from that little stretch, get much farther down, and I did it for about 5 seconds. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to want to focus more on the upper body. We're going to incorporate some more dynamic stuff, especially as we go through the lower body. But we want to incorporate active stretches as much as possible to increase the number of sarcomeres in series. So we want to make the muscles actually longer and warm up the tissues at the same time. So the next one's going to be upper body. We'll see you in that one. This one's going to be a more dynamic stretch. It's a tried and true technique. It's going to be arm circles. We want to make sure we're doing this properly. I see a lot of guys doing different types and they're doing them lackadaisically. The goal of arm circles is to take the shoulder through as great a range of motion as possible to lubricate the joint and warm the tissues. So you can perform it in various ways based on your goal, whether it's to get more warmed up or take the shoulder through a full range of motion. We really like this one, and sometimes we follow it up with a more static stretch, the sleeper stretch, which we've shown in quite a few videos by now, and some other horizontal adduction stretches. For the purpose of this video, we're going to do this dynamic stretch. We're going to do bilateral circles, thumbs pointing back all the way into shoulder flexion as far as you can. From there, I'm going to start bringing them out to the side really slowly, going as far back as I can, pulling my shoulder blades together, coming forward. Shoulder blades go forward when I reach up. Thumbs backwards, far back as I can. I can stay in external rotation, which is a great way to perform it. Can really work on that scapular retraction and depression. It can also help me avoid impingement position. So we like the reverse circle or the backward circle a lot. We're also going to do forward circles. In the forward circle, we like to do internal rotation on the way down. Approximates what happens during the throw, the deceleration aspect. Really focusing on big, wide circles, nice and slow, but it does warm the tissue because I'm really fighting against the end range. We like that one. This one, warm the tissues, but you're not going to get the same range of motion effects. We follow that up so some different exercises where we'll actually, and I'll pull this out of the way here, and I'll come against the wall, where we can actually go into horizontal adduction, pin my scapula against the wall here. Every gym you train at should have a wall. Most fields have dugouts or something. Sometimes you got to put a little towel behind your shoulder here. And I'm going to do an active and assisted version of the horizontal adduction stretch. Rather than doing this, I'm actually going to pin the scapula down so I can isolate that posterior capsule, that posterior musculature. So I'm going to pin the shoulder blade against my rib cage. So I'm leaning against my shoulder blade, which is why it's sometimes uncomfortable and I can use a towel back there. And then from there, I'm going to pull across the chest. And then while I'm pulling across the chest, I'm going to push into my hand, so I'm pushing my elbow this way. Keep my weight against that shoulder blade, pinned it down. I'm going to push into my own hand, 5 seconds, relax. I'll be able to take it a little farther. Don't pull too hard. These are delicate structures. Once I do that, I can actually try to reach across my chest so I'm trying to reach that way with this arm while I pull that way with this one. So I'm activating into the range like we talked about with the hamstring. So there's an active assisted static variation of the stretch. We're incorporating some PNF styles with agonist and antagonist contraction. Really like that one for throwing athletes because they really lack that motion across the chest. Do one set of this, one set of the hamstring stretch if you're going prior to a game. If you're using this as more of a flexibility routine, you can do a few sets and really try to increase that range. You want to try to increase the range in the warm-up while also activating and warming the tissues, which is totally different than what most studies that look at the effects of static stretching on performance do. They don't do an active assisted stretch. They actually do almost in every one that I've seen, maybe every one that I've seen, a passive stretch where they're just stretching usually a large muscle group passively, not incorporating activation of that muscle group or activation of the muscles on the other side. And they often do it for extended periods of time. So up to 30 seconds on the hamstring stretch or this static stretch, if it's in your warm-up, with those muscle contractions is going to better prepare you for playing, especially if you need that range of motion. The dynamic shoulder circles are always great. So we'll go into one more little dynamic stretch that we like to use, and it'll work really good for warm-ups and increasing the range that you may have gained on that hamstring stretch. So this is a great hip mobility drill that we use at the OAI to, as some people would say, open up the hips, work on that dynamic flexibility of the adductors and the hamstrings. So the way I'll do this is I'll go out to the side, I'll squat down, keeping my knees, driving my knees out, go into a nice little squat here. I'll shift over to this side, then I'll shift to the other side, then I'll turn, go into a little toe touch, and then I'll squat back down. I'll do the opposite, turn, go into a little toe touch, and then I can increase the effectiveness of it by actually turning my body when I turn. So I can actually turn. I'm working out a lot of quadriceps here, little instability training, going into that hamstring stretch there. It looks very weird, but if you do it, you'll know why we utilize it. Very hard sometimes for the younger athletes to perform it. So forward, I squat down, shift one way, I actually go a little wider, shift one way, shift the other way. When I shift, I'll turn my body, go down like I'm touching this leg, then I can go back and do the other side. And then when I want to actually turn and work on more of the lateral hamstring, I can shift, stretching that adductor, shift, stretching that adductor. I turn my back foot, turn my front foot, and stretch. Turn my chest, so I'm actually working on a little thoracic rotation. Trying to keep the best posture you can. Very unstable, very difficult. Makes you feel really loose. So if you think it's weird, you might be a little bit insecure to try it at the gym or something like that. We've heard that from a few athletes, but very effective, and maybe it'll build a little character if you go to the gym and try it too. So don't ever be afraid to try these exercises at the gym. A lot of times people get weird looks. I get weird looks when I'm doing some of our corrective exercise at my university or wherever I'm doing them. Just know you're doing the right thing and get the benefit from the exercise. That's going to make the biggest difference in the end, and you can't really worry about what other people think. Try to get the work in, be the best you can be. Exercises like this will help. So hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to grow this platform for you guys. The bigger it gets, the better the videos can be, the more time we have to allocate to them. And then make sure to like the video. If you like the video, we can create more on dynamic stretches, more on static stretches. It tells us that you like it. So until next time, guys, we see you then.